Hi, I'm George Maestri, and today we're going to create gears in SketchUp. So I have a simple image of a gear that we're going to use as a template. And so before we do that, we need something to place the image onto. So I'm going to start off with a simple rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and select my rectangle tool and just draw something out. Now we want this to be square because my reference image is also square. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 8, 8, and we'll make that just a small little square. So we're going to make a little 8-inch gear. So now that I have this, I can bring in my image. So we're going to go ahead and import that image, and we're going to have an image out there called gear.jpg. Now when we import this, we want to make sure we import it as a texture. So let's go ahead and import that. And then once we have that, we can left click and drag to size it to our object. Now, before we go any further, I want to tell you that this reference image is not perfect, but the gear that we draw will be. So we're going to just use this as reference, not as an exact guide. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and just select this, and let's group it so that anything we draw on top of it won't stick. So I'm going to go Make Group. And now I want to create a center line. So I need to know where the center of this is. And I can do that in one of two ways. Probably the easiest way is to just draw it. So I'm going to take my line tool, draw from midpoint to midpoint, and from midpoint to midpoint. So now I know that that's the center of my object. Now if you notice, it's not exactly the center of the center circle, but again, our gear will turn out just fine. Now, the first thing I need to do is draw a polygon that roughly is the same size as this circle. Now, before we draw the polygon, we need to know how many sprockets we are going to need. So in this case, I already counted around the edge, we have 10 sprockets. So the polygon we draw needs to be multiples of 10, so 10, 20, 30, and so on. So I'm going to make a 20 unit polygon. So I'm going to select that polygon, type in the number 20, hit enter, snap to that center, left click and drag, and then I want to snap this along the red axis there and kind of get it right like that. Now when we do this, notice how we're getting this kind of fluttering, and that's because this polygon here is directly on top of my reference. So to take out that noise, I'm just going to move my reference down in the blue axis, just a small amount, just about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to go ahead and lock to blue and just drop it down just a little bit. So now I'm not getting that fluttering. Now, in order to draw this, I first off need to turn everything into X-ray mode so we can kind of see through what we're doing. And then I'm going to go into a top view. I want to look straight down at this and put on parallel projection. Now, I can draw this center here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to, again, snap to endpoint and draw this center. And notice how it's just a little bit off, but that's, again, because the image itself is off, not because my drawing is off. So now that we have this, I can start to draw one of these sprockets. Now, I'm going to use the top sprocket because it's pretty much straight up and down, and it makes it much easier to draw. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to snap to this endpoint here and draw that, snap to this endpoint here and draw that. Now I want to just do one side of this. So I'm going to zoom in here and we're going to do the right side of this. So I'm going to draw this portion of the sprocket. So I'm going to take my line tool, align this here, and notice I can get an inference that's perpendicular. And when I do, it perfectly lines up with my reference. And that's exactly what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line there. Keep drawing this line up to here. And then notice how this kind of has a bit of an arc over to that face. So I want to draw a line across from here. And then I'm going to make a rounded corner. So I'm going to go ahead and select my 2-point arc and just round that a little bit. And as you can see, we pretty much have that. And so I'm going to go ahead and start deleting detail that I don't want. So now I've got something that's flat here and that's perpendicular here, and that's really what's important. So now I've drawn this half of this sprocket, and I need to create the other side of that. So what I want to do before I start copying and pasting, I want to select everything that I've created, and I want to group it. Now the reason I'm grouping it is so when I cut and paste, things don't stick. So I'm going to go Edit, Make Group, and then I'm going to go and double click into this group and select this one face. And then I'm going to do Edit, Copy, left click out of the group, Edit, Paste in Place. So now I have that face that's basically pasted in place. And now I want to create the other side. So all I have to do is mirror that. So I'm going to select my scale tool and then scale it -1 on the other side. And then just do another Edit, Paste in Place. So now I have these two faces. And once I do, I can now copy all of them to make the sprockets. So I'm going to select my rotate tool, snap to center, hold down Control, and then rotate those 36 degrees. Now remember, this is 10 sprockets. 360 divided by 10 is 36. So I want to make sure I'm exactly at 36. And then I'm going to hit ×9, and that will create a total of 9 copies, plus the original makes for 10 sprockets. So now I can select all of this stuff that we had before. We can do an Edit, Hide, and now I'm basically have the outline of my sprockets. So now I can go through and I can start to delete these edges to make this one solid face. And now I'm going to go back into Perspective View, tilt this over, select that face, and use my Push-Pull tool to pull it up. Now again, I'm in X-ray mode, but as soon as I turn it off, you can see I have a very, very nice gear. So when we model radially symmetric objects such as gears or car rims or really anything like that, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you create one of the objects perfectly, and then you can use the rotate tool and multiply that to create all of the copies.